In addition to the Dolphins' 8 draft choices, they've come to terms with a number of undrafted free agents to add to the offseason roster. We're introducing you to that list here today on Locked On Dolphins.
You are Locked On Dolphins, your daily Miami Dolphins podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, Miami, welcome to another episode of Locked On Dolphins. It is your team every day here on the Locked On Network. I'm your host, Kyle Krabs, a lifelong Miami Dolphins fan, host of Locked On Dolphins, co-host of Locked On NFL Scouting, and author of Touchdown Miami on Substack. I want to thank all of our everydayers for tuning in because it is your team every day. We don't just say it, we live it here on the Locked On Network. Today's episode of Locked On Dolphins is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay tuned for the Armada draft pick of the week later in the show. 8 draft selections in total for the Miami Dolphins, a bunch of defensive tackles, a powerhouse of an offensive guard, a couple of defensive backs, a new quarterback for the mix. Over the last couple of days, we've gone over each one of the Dolphins selections throughout the course of the weekend. And I want to give a big thank you for everybody who tuned out. Big time numbers for us this weekend reacting to this pivotal Dolphins draft class. A little bit later in the week, I'm going to do the full assessment. I'm still working on some valuation type stuff of the trades that the Dolphins conducted, looking at different resources for not just your traditional trade value charts, but some of the more recent stuff that's out there and available. And I also want to take a full picture look at undrafted free agency, the draft, and the assets that they lost and gained in the process as a big picture show a little later this week. But this is kind of like the last hyper-focused show that we're doing with the 2025 draft, which is the undrafted free agent group. And there's a number of names that exist on this list, and we're going to this is courtesy of Pro Football Network, the most up-to-date list that I was able to find as far as players added to the Dolphins offseason roster. I want to talk about a number of these guys. I had 2 guys here that I had draftable grades on. We're going to do spotlight on both of those guys. And then we'll finish today with some interesting financial notes and who can make the team. So alphabetically speaking, you get 4 wide receivers right off the top. A.J. Henning from Northwestern, Andrew Armstrong from Arkansas, Monterey Baldwin from Baylor, and Theo Wease Jr. from Missouri. There's 4 wide receivers. You do have 1 running back, Nate Noel, a tight end, Jalin Conyers, a couple of offensive linemen, Addison West from Western Michigan, Josh Prebe. I'm going to do my research there. Offensive guard from Michigan, Neelan Hibbett, long snapper from Alabama, Eugene Asante, linebacker Auburn, Alex Huntley, defensive tackle from South Carolina, Ted Kushi, offensive lineman from Western Michigan. So they clearly saw something they liked in that Western Michigan unit. And then a trio of defensive backs, John Saunders Jr. from Ole Miss, Ethan Robinson from Minnesota, and B.J. Adams from UCF. B.J. Adams, a name that stands out. I was a little bit lower on than some of my other contemporaries in the draft space. But there is a physical profile there that should be able to compete with the likes of Ethan Bonner and Isaiah Johnson and Storm Duck. And you know, it's been reported Barry Jackson of the Herald reported that the Dolphins have been in contact with some veteran corners, including like a Rasul Douglas. So they have continued to assert that they are not done and that they're going to have a wave of free agency here. And I would imagine that they will probably add a few veterans, and one of those will be a veteran corner. But the competition in that room is going to be pretty open. Ironically enough, B.J. Adams is not one of the 2 players that I had as having a draftable grade for the Dolphins off of this undrafted free agency list. Those 2 players, Andrew Armstrong, wide receiver from Arkansas, and Jalin Conyers, tight end from Texas Tech. I am super fired up that the Dolphins were able to get both of these guys in-house. And I don't want to do segment 3 before segment 3. So I'm not going to talk about like the outlook of making the 53-man roster just yet. But I do want to, I have full write-ups on both of these players. And I want to give both of them kind of their moment here as far as doing a deep dive. So we're going to do that after our first break. But I do want to kind of point out, I don't think the long snapper addition of Nealon Hibbett is a nothing burger, because remember that Blake Ferguson spent a majority of the season last year on the non-football injury list for what has been, there's some whispers and assertions, but nothing that I could firsthand, confirm. And I'm not really in that ball game anyway. So there was something that prevented Blake Ferguson from being a part of the team and executing his responsibilities as a long snapper. And I think we only had one long snapper drafted. So it's not like this is a position where you get a lot of run. Dude played at Alabama. So I would not totally dismiss the idea that the Dolphins are going to have a legitimate long snapper competition when it's all said and done. As far as undrafted free agents that the team did not land, there were a couple of players that I had fairly highly graded that I would have liked to have seen the Dolphins go out and get. I don't know the financial terms of Jared Ivey, defensive end from Ole Miss. Has some alignment versatility, did not test well, and it seemed like that was kind of what sunk his outlook. Tommy Hill is a cornerback, and from Nebraska, is a former wide receiver that had a lot of size and physicality. He was somebody who I was intrigued to see if the Dolphins would land him. I don't believe he's landed anywhere yet. So maybe that one still happens, but the Dolphins didn't get that one lined up in this initial wave of UDFAs. So that's kind of where we stand as far as I had two guys that I felt were like early day 3 type targets. Tommy Hill, Jared Ivey. Dolphins didn't get either one of those. But these two names of Jalin Conyers and Andrew Armstrong, I did have firm day 3 grades on both. We're going to spotlight them both next here on Locked On Dolphins. Stick with us. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game where every bucket, every stop, and every moment feels huge. It could be the turning point of the game. It's electric at the arena, and with Game Time, you could be a part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Game Time makes it fast and easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off, and their last-minute deals can help save you up to 60% off your tickets. And it's not just for sports. There's concerts, comedy, theater, and more. You name it, they have it. And they're all in pricing, means there's no surprise fees when you go to check out. What you see when you put the tickets into your cart is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets with the lowest prices, guaranteed. And start with Jalin Conyers, who was my highest rated player that the Dolphins signed as a UDFA. He was my 10th ranked tight end. I had a 5th round grade on Jalin Conyers. He was 168th on my draft board. So to me, I'm counting this one like a draft pick. And it certainly doesn't hurt that you go back to the 2025 Miami Dolphins offseason blueprint. And sure enough, Jalin Conyers, I had mocked to the Dolphins at 156. There is a lot of diverse appeal in what Conyers brings to the table. I'm going to read the ideal scheme fit role, some bullet points. We'll get into his background a little bit, kind of like what we've been doing with some of the Dolphins draft picks over the last couple of days. Conyers projects well for a heavy personnel-focused scheme. He blurs the lines between a big slot and a tight end, and at times a fullback. He's a talented athlete with the ball in his hands and could be given ample opportunity to develop his route-running ability to become a more prolific weapon. In the meantime, play-action heavy passing schemes can take advantage of his alignment versatility to give him favorable angles in blocking schemes and get him the ball quickly underneath on a pass play. Okay, that sounds familiar. That's the Dolphins do a lot of that kind of stuff. Conyers is a redshirt senior, originally played at Arizona State. He's from Groover, Texas, played high school football for Groover, multi-sport talent who played basketball, baseball, track and field, golf, and football. He was a quarterback in high school before converting to play tight end, but he was ranked as a 4-star recruit coming out of high school. He originally committed to Oklahoma over offers from LSU, Georgia, Ohio State, played one season in Oklahoma. He did not play, redshirted the entire year in 2020, and then transferred to Arizona State. He played 3 years at ASU, 7 starts in 34 games. He had 38 catches and 422 yards and 5 touchdowns during his redshirt sophomore season in 2022. And he was credited with 18 forced missed tackles in the final 5 games of that season. He also finished in the top 10 amongst FBS tight ends in 2023 in yards after the catch. So you have missed tackle ability, you have yards after catch ability, you have alignment diversity. His final season came, he transferred to Texas Tech. It was second team all Big 12, accepted an invitation to play at the East-West Shrine Bowl to culminate his college career. There's direct snap stuff. There's some run game diversity. This was if you miss on Tyler Warren and you want the long-term developmental version that can do some of the same kinds of things. This was the name. Kind of reminded me, the comp that I had for him was a player who actually went to San Francisco on day 3 a couple years ago, Braden Willis, who ironically enough started his career or played his career at Oklahoma, which is where Jalin Conyers started his career. From an athletic profile standpoint, 6'3.5", 260 pounds with a 81-inch wingspan. That's 81-inch wingspan is 79th percentile for NFL tight end since 2000 to come through the combine. Ran 4.74, so he's fast enough. His 10-yard split was better from a percentile standpoint than his 40, but some agility here. He was 72nd percentile in the short shuttle. He was 85th percentile in the 3-cone drill. He ran that in under 7 seconds at 260 pounds. It's like pass rusher, good pass rusher times on the 3-cone. He had over a 10-foot broad jump and a 35.5-inch vertical. Both of those tests were over the 75th percentile for the NFL Combine perspective. So you take all that, put it together. Just a player who I think maybe at times the versatility was, instead of being an asset, it was kind of a detriment and a blockade to him being the best version of himself as a college player as he possibly could be. I look at what I had in the actual tail of the tape. Conyers is a fascinating piece of the puzzle capable of fulfilling a role for a creative offensive mind. Well, that certainly falls in line with what the Dolphins have. Explicitly wrote, this is direct text from the report, the Shanahan branches will likely love him. That said, those roles are overly complex, and while he has every bit of size, physicality, and athleticism to execute it, his mastery of assignment could require a multi-year investment. As a blocker, he offers size and sufficient grip strength to play in space. He bullies safeties and corners on the arc releases and gets up outside the numbers in the run game. Shows good cadence and vision for instances in which he's put in the backfield and charged with leading around the corner in the red area or pick up gap shooters that try to run underneath the play. This is a player who can make this football team. I won't kind of window dress it till the third segment of the show. And there's some financial considerations here as well, where he got a decent sized guarantee to sign in Miami. Not every undrafted free agent contract is made the same. And I think that's something that, you see some players, they get a little bit later in the draft. They'd almost rather go undrafted because then they can get into that free agency and bidding era where teams can give them guaranteed money. So Conyers got a $15,000 signing bonus with $100,000 more in guaranteed salary. So the Dolphins have guaranteed him $115,000 to come in and sign with the team. That ain't bad coin. Like that's a sizable commitment. That, ironically enough, is not even the biggest financial investment the Dolphins gave out. They gave a 3-year contract to wide receiver Theo Wease, who I'm in the process of today kind of going back, rewatching, restudying, kind of want to make sure when we sit down and we present all of these players, we have the best and most front of mind kind of observations to present, which is why the guys we're getting into today, and Conyers and Armstrong, are the guys that I have full write-ups on for the 33rd team. But Aaron Wilson reported that the Dolphins gave Wease a 3-year undrafted deal that included $249,000 in total guarantees. It's not a guarantee. Like the dollars aren't so big that it's going to guarantee they make the roster. But it is a big enough guarantee where you kind of sit up in your chair a little bit and you say, wow, they very clearly see something, and they're very clearly invested in getting him into the room. Ironically enough, I did rank Wease. He was not my highest graded wide receiver the Dolphins signed in undrafted free agency. That honor goes to Andrew Armstrong. 6'3" and 3/4 on the size. 6'0", verified. 202, redshirt senior. Big, physical, amazing length, great hands. He's got a 79.5-inch wingspan for wide receivers. That's 88th percentile. He's got over 9.5-inch hands on the hand size. It shows at the catch point. He plays through contact and plucks the ball really, really well. And his catch radius, thanks to his length, that wingspan is monstrous. And it shows quite often on tape for Andrew Armstrong. Kind of the same deal. He was my 183rd ranked player, my 20th ranked wide receiver. I also had a 5th round grade on him. Armstrong projects best as a developmental special teams target and depth receiver in the draft. He can adopt opportunities as a blocking option in an offense with some prolific separators, or a flex tight end that can ease teams from cheating off of his routes disproportionately. Jonnu Smith, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, for now. Kind of feels like the spot where if he really is lights out as a blocker, he could potentially push for the role on the roster last year that was occupied by Grant Dubose. Now, he kind of took the indirect route to getting to Arkansas and hence the NFL level. He's from Dallas, Texas, played his high school football for Bishop Dunn Catholic. There he put up modest numbers and went unranked and unrecruited. He enrolled at Texas A&M Commerce and joined the program for their 2019 season. So he's a true freshman in 2019. So this is an older player. He redshirted 19. Their 2020 season was canceled because of COVID. So he was on campus for 2 years before he played a snap. Played 10 games in 21. And then in 2022, as a fourth-year sophomore, posted over 1,000 yards at A&M Commerce. After the season, he entered the transfer portal, enrolled at Arkansas, played the next 2 years, and started all 33 games he played over that stretch. Was named second team All-SEC, in 2024. Not a big-time separator, not overly prolific as a route runner. He's a sufficient level athlete. I think he's more short area, like linear explosive than he is somebody. And because he's tall, like those stride lengths and that ability to kind of make the subtle adjustments on his route stems is not necessarily really going to allow for a great deal of route salesmanship. But he is somebody. He ran 4.51 in the 40-yard dash. His 10-yard split was a 1.53. That's 64th percentile. Like, there's sufficient level NFL athleticism here. He did the 40 with obviously a 10-yard split, the vertical, the broad, the 3-cone, the short shuttle, and the bench press. He did everything at the combine. The only things that he did that he was below the 50th percentile for NFL wide receivers as a big receiver was the bench, where those long arms kind of worked against him, and the 3-cone drill, which was 46th percentile. Everything else was at least 50th percentile or up. So he's a sufficient level athlete who brings physicality, but he's leggy, and that means kind of the twitch, the short area twitch isn't there. Now, the saying kind of goes, you want to build your wide receiver rooms like a basketball team. And the Dolphins really haven't done a great job of doing that over the last couple of years, because it was River Craycraft and Braxton Berrios and Odell Beckham and Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and and Malik Washington and Taj Washington. I mean, that's 7 names. And who's the biggest guy you had on that group? Odell, who couldn't even show halfway interest in actually playing football last year? and heaven forbid you threw the ball to somebody else, you'd sit there and mope and walk off the field. Okay. Yeah. Didn't have a great diversity of body types. And you kind of saw that start with Nick Westbrook-Akine with that they signed in free agency. Grant Dubose obviously was supposed to be a piece of that puzzle, but dealt with multiple injuries last year. I'm pretty intrigued here for Andrew Armstrong and what he could potentially bring to the table. But the investment that the Dolphins made in Wease is not something to be slept on because, as I said, it's a 3-year undrafted free agent deal with almost $250,000 guaranteed. Now, and that's a big investment. And Wease is 6'3", 200 pounds. He's not he's even slower than Andrew Armstrong is. He ran a 4.56, but he's another big body type with another large catch radius and wingspan. So that's kind of the book on some of the bigger ads that the Dolphins have at this stage. Now, who has the legit chances to make the roster? We're going to go back to that undrafted free agent list, and we're going to explore who has a shot next here, Locked on Dolphins. So make sure that you guys stick with us. The Armada pick of the week is brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. This week, we're highlighting the top pick from our draft, the one that truly stood out. This guy showcased the strength and power needed to push the Dolphins front forward as we look ahead to next season. And today's pick is 5th-round draft choice, Jordan Phillips, a powerful, rugged, interior defensive lineman that just simply will not be denied. And he has the ability to push forward through whatever adversity and offensive lineman you're going to put across from him as an A-gap defender who deals with a lot of trash around him at the point of attack. Well, you could use words like heavy duty and rugged to describe Jordan Phillips, but that also perfectly fits the 2025 Nissan Armada. When it comes to the Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what I think Jordan Phillips has the potential to do on the defensive interior for Miami. Our top pick of this draft is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can with the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada or any of their outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure at shopnissanusa.com. Have teased some of these a little bit as it pertains to who I think can make the 53. I would go so far to say that I would bet Jalin Conyers makes this roster. Where they have Julian Hill, they have Pharaoh Brown, they have Alec Ingold, and they have Jonnu Smith, obviously, is kind of the marquee pieces in the tight end room as things currently stand. And Conyers joins that list as a player who has enough, I think, flex, but also backfield movement that he can be the actual NFL version of what they were hoping they were going to find in Tanner Conner, right? Where Tanner Conner had some struggles with some drops, but it never really clicked into place. He was a big wide receiver from a small school that they were trying to convert over. And it never really happened for Tanner. And there were some injuries along the way that made it tough. Jalin Conyers, especially now having ingratiated himself and found opportunities in multiple offenses between Arizona State and Texas Tech. He's lived in the slot. He's taken more than 50% of his career snaps in the slot as a 260-pound tight end who can also get put in the backfield and create a little bit of chaos. He has a career drop rate of 6%. So you got sure hands, you got alignment versatility, you got athleticism, you got experience doing some wonky stuff that Mike's going to like. He can play detached from the core. He can line up in the backfield. He can play in the slot. You can put him in H-back. I don't know. And is the only reason he went undrafted because he's going to be 24 years old as a rookie because he redshirted Oklahoma and He's not a true inline tight end, so there's a little, and he's not a great route runner right now. If that's the case, then let's line him up and see what happens. I can't imagine that Conyers is going to really ingratiate himself to this coaching staff. I have high expectations there. I won't guarantee one of the wide receivers makes the roster. And Monterey Baldwin from Baylor, one of the names we didn't really do a deep dive on today, dude can fly. So you got some guys with speed, you got some guys with size. I'm sure the Dolphins would really like and love to see somebody claim a spot out of that group. I think the challenge that exists there is, barring moving on from number 10, you're pretty blocked up here, where it's Waddle, Hill, Malik Washington, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. You feel pretty good about that being the 1 through 4, right? Now, then you have Tosh Washington coming back. You're not super invested there. You have D. Eskridge, who was on the team last year. He's got some sweat equity. I'm going to stop assuming it's going to happen for Eric Ezukama. It just seems like he can't get himself in a position where they trust him out there on the field. But if you're going to expand the tight end room to potentially have Conyers and maybe, maybe Pharaoh Brown with his low guaranteed dollar doesn't make the cut, or maybe they move on from Julian Hill and try to stash him on the practice squad, right? I think you could play the numbers game where I could realistically see the Dolphins carrying 5 tight ends if you include Alec Ingold in that conversation. But if it's 4, I could see you having a vacancy for a Wease or an Armstrong or somebody else. Can be the next name, unless you move on from Tyreek Hill and get an offer that makes it worth your while to part ways with Tyreek. And if that's the case, then I would certainly say one of Wease or Armstrong, I would guess, make the roster. Even though it's a totally different body type, and maybe that's where you open the window for a veteran player elsewhere to kind of come in and take some opportunities and kind of soften the blow and run the offense through Waddle, Jonnu, Achane, Nick Westbrook-Ikhine is a big-bodied outside guy in the passing game. And then Malik I feel like Malik Washington really going to be in line. The chemistry that he has with Tua, I think, was pretty apparent on film last year. So that'll be the challenge for these UDFA guys is, who can ingratiate themselves with the run game assignments, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of footballs to go around. We already mentioned Nealon Hibbett, the long snapper. I would not be surprised if you were in a full-on competition there, where, Blake obviously has been an incumbent here for quite some time, but whatever happened last year happened. And that's a hard spot to put yourself in, where the Dolphins had to sit here and juggle a whole bunch of assignments from off the practice squad every couple of weeks to get through the season and not lose a position player. BJ Adams, I would put in competition just because the current state of affairs of the cornerback room as well. Those would probably be my leaders in the clubhouse right now. I know some people are really high on John Saunders as well from Ole Miss. So if I were to separate the names out and say, hey, I think this guy has a shot, I'd say Armstrong and Wease, Saunders and Adams. I would bet right now Conyers does make the roster, just based off of the conviction that I had on him as a player. But we'll see. That's going to do it for us here today on Locked On Dolphins, a early look, and we'll deep dive these guys a little bit more in the days and weeks ahead and kind of familiarize ourselves with them as we continue to kind of go back and rewatch and gloss through some of the tape and get familiar with the ins and outs of their games in a way in which I want to be able to present them to you here on the show. That's going to do it. Kyle Krabs, keep it locked in right here, Locked On Dolphins, your team every day. Appreciate you guys as always for checking out the show. I'll talk to you all again soon. Go Fins.